music has attributes that you can objectify.
I love music, I love science. Why would I want to mix the two?
It's like an alchemist or a wizard. This person knows about things that they're not supposed to know about.
Somehow we demand of musicians something different.
How does somebody in this, or how does somebody in the sciences, where it's all about breaking things down into rational, analyzable chunks, how do you deal with something that's really hard to, or at least to somebody from my side, it seems to be really hard to do that. I'll bet you get resistance too from people going, you can't analyze this,
yeah.
or.
Well, it's hard because you know, I remember this quote from Alan Watts, the philosopher, sticks in my head. He'd written a number of books introducing Eastern philosophy to Western audiences in the 70s, and of course, having grown up in Northern California in the 70s, you know, this is the kind of thing that, you know, my own brain was just wired to want to take in. Eastern philosophy, yeah. Are there drugs in there too? Cool. And it was, his quote was that the problem with science is that when it wants to study the river, the scientist will go to the river with a bucket, take a bucket of water out, bring it to the shore, and sit there and study the bucket of water. And of course, that's not river.
Yeah.
Right? And that the problem with science is that if you're not careful, you lose the dynamic, flowing nature of the phenomena that you're trying to study. And, you know, a lot of people have tried to study music by, you know, getting rid of everything except pitch, or everything except rhythm, or, you know, having these very strange artificial computer-generated sounds and then seeing what the brain does in response to it. And I think, you know, just like the bucket isn't river, you know, rhythm is not music. It can be, but if it wasn't composed to be just a rhythm, if you take somebody's song and you strip away all of the pitch and you're left with only the rhythm that they never intended to stand alone, then I think you're not studying it properly.
Do you think things are changing that way? There's more of an acceptance of...
There's always this tension in science that you want to control your variables, and you want to know what it is you're studying, and yet you want to have what we call, you know, we have a lot of jargon in our field. One of the jargon terms is ecological validity, which is just a fancy way to say it has to be like the real world. And there's this tension between these two. And I've erred on the side of having the ecological validity in some cases in my own experiments, because I want to see the real phenomena. We were talking about people who were having these speaking in tongues experiences, these religious experiences earlier. And you know, there's a very, not an everyday experience, but it's something that you normally wouldn't get in the lab. And I think that's worth studying. The hazard, as in the thing we just read this morning, is that you can run up against some limits to what you can learn about it because it's not controlled. But getting back to this other thing you were saying about language, and you know, art versus language, and why art can get at some of the things language can't, I think is where you were going with it.
Yeah. I mean, language is sound as well as text.
Yeah. Oh, well, we have sign language. And
Yeah. But, okay. But, yeah, so, but, yeah, I guess I'm thinking about music as sound, rhythm, pitch, and visual phenomena apart from text in that way. That it, yeah, it seems to touch what we would call the irrational, emotional parts of ourselves. But as somebody who makes music, and I think, yeah, you know this as well, that there are kind of tried and true ways of doing that.
Yeah.
Sadly enough, there are tried and true kind of buttons that you can press that will get emotional responses.
Yeah.
To some extent, it can be sort of objectified. You can say, if you do this, people are going to, the person that hears this is going to feel this way.
Oh, sure. There's the strings from Hitchcock's Psycho, Bernard Herrmann's score, right? I mean, you play that dissonant, discordant string sound, and you know people are going to go.
Yes, and okay, so I tend to think that people intuitively, they feel that, okay, in a musical performance, whether it's recorded or live, that the emotion is coming from the person, and that makes it authentic and true and real, and therefore morally more upstanding and good. Whereas I would say, yeah, okay, a little bit, but music has attributes that you can objectify, as you just said. This kind of sound, this kind of rhythm, this kind of thing will generate this kind of emotion if it's done in any kind of half-assed manner.
In Lilies of the Valley, you're going way high up in your range. Your voice gets a little thin and you get a crack in it. And it sounds like you're choked up and you're about to cry.
Yes.
And so that pulls on me.
Yeah, and you know that that's what it does, and that's what the intended effect.
And so you try to get that.
That's the intended effect. It's not that I don't feel it. It's not that I don't emotionally feel it.
But you're consciously aware that if you do that, it's going to have this result.
And you could say, oh, then that's all just a trick. It's like a magician.
Yeah.
Well, it is in a way, but it's also what makes it less real, the fact that you have the craft to convey, to know that to convey this emotion, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it less real. I'm wondering, is this similar to, do you run up against this where people go, well, you're objectifying something that we as a music listener feel shouldn't be objectified, that it should be, that, oh, if music is real, then it's coming from the heart.
And the story.
And the story.
Right.
And it's not, you, how can you take it apart?
You know who actually said this to me was Cher. She was just mortified.
Of all people.
She was mortified that...
As she plugs her voice into the voice box thing.
Well, she's not there for that. She comes in, she sings, she goes home. I mean, you know, the producers are doing all the Antari's work. She was mortified that somebody would try to study something that seems unstudyable. And a lot of people are, I think the comment that I get most often is, I don't want to read about it, I don't want to hear about it, because it's going to ruin my appreciation if you demystify it for me.
Well, that's right. I've heard that as well. And so people have that reaction to your book, that they just say, well, I don't want to, this is stuff I do not want to know.
Which is why I actually start the very first sentence in the book, or the epigraph, the opening phrase is a quote from Robert Sapolsky, who says, I love music, I love science, why would I want to mix the two? And, you know, this, I remember, you know, I went to music school, I went to Berklee College of Music, and I remember the night before, I don't remember whether this made it into the final edit of the book or not, but I had this panic. What the hell am I doing? I love music, and I'm going to learn everything about it starting tomorrow, and then I'm not going to like it anymore because I'm going to be a mechanic.
Yeah, the thing is, it doesn't happen.
Right.
You can know what happens in a sunset and still be just as awe-inspired and breathless when you see a sunset. Yeah. No matter how much you know about the kind of the dust in the air and the light spectrum or whatever.
The diffraction of light particles.
Yes.
And,
you can know that up the wazoo, and it doesn't take away anything. If anything, you might even enjoy it more on more levels.
I think that too.
I think that to some extent that goes back to those examples that you used of the kind of the visual, the optical illusions, I guess, where no matter that you know that this arrow is the same size as this one, or this table surface is the same size as this one, and you can look at it until you're blue in the face, and you won't believe it. We're kind of wired to feel things a certain way musically, and perceive things visually a certain way, and that yeah, no matter what you know about it, no matter, that you take out and measure the arrows and they're the same size, you will never be able to see them that way.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing's true with music. You can know what's going on, but it's almost like if it works, it will never not affect you.
Yeah.